In this video, I'm going to be going over wide forehand footwork patterns for 4.0 players. The reason that I'm making this video is twofold. Firstly, I'm relearning to play left-handed, so this is the stuff that I'm practicing and working on at the moment because it's an area that's letting me down in my game, but also because I'm playing other 4.0 players, it's really given me an opportunity to see some of the things that are doing them wrong and what I believe are some of the big things that are preventing them from getting to that next level. So I'm going to be breaking down how to get to the wide balls, so the most optimal footwork to get out of the ball, and then the different types of footwork patterns that we've got while we're making contact with the ball, as well as the recovery. I hope you find this video helpful. If you do, it'd be awesome if you could give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on any of my content. Okay, so the key thing that we're really trying to do with these wide forehand footwork patterns is we're trying to be able to cover as much ground as we can, as quickly as we can, so we can arrive in position as balanced as possible, so that we can hit a better quality of shot to hopefully either neutralize the rally or to get back in a dominant position. So what I'm going to be doing is kind of breaking things down for you. We're going to start with the movement out to the ball. Then we're going to work on contact footwork, which is exactly what you do when you're hitting the ball. And we've got 4 different variations of that, which I'll explain. And then talking about the recovery back from the ball. So we've always got to keep the end goal in mind. All of these wide footworks are going to be done from an open stance. So we're going to be driving off your outside leg. I'm playing left-handed at the moment, so I'm going to be pushing off my left leg. Obviously, as a right-hander, you're going to be pushing off your right leg, but they're all going to be pushing off that outside leg. The key thing that we need is we need to be in position. So with our unit turn, our upper body unit turn, maybe with the arm in full extension, maybe a little bit bent, depending on what's going on with you. Arm across, so we need to have arrived in this position, ready to do the different contact footworks. So keep in mind, this is our goal, outside foot, because then we're going to be driving from this outside leg, rotating with the hips in order to start the swing. So that's what we're going to be getting to in a moment. What we've got to start with is the most optimal way to get there. Now, I don't want to spend too long on the split step, but the thing I do need to cover is the wider your split step, the more ground you're going to be able to cover. When you watch the top players play, they have got insanely wide split steps. I'm not flexible enough to get my legs as wide as Federer does on his split step. Obviously, he can go way, way wider, but that's one of the big reasons why they're able to cover so much ground so quickly. So I work on my flexibility a lot. It might be something you need to work on as well, because this wide base is going to be a key feature. After the split step, we've got a very specific type of footwork pattern that we're going to be using called a lift pivot plant. Now, it'll look a little bit strange the first demonstration, but then when I start to add a little bit of speed to it, it will make more sense. So the lift pivot plant basically involves doing this. I'm going to lift my outside leg, I'm going to bring it back underneath my hip, and I'm going to place the ball of the foot roughly underneath my hip with my shin pointing backwards. The reason we do this is because this allows us to impart force, to push off in that direction, so we can cover as much ground as possible. A lot of people think that you step out for these wide balls. That's not what happens, because if I do this, look at my shin angle now. That isn't helping me to push in that direction, it's slowing me down. And I'm going to be pulling with my hamstring, so this is going to increase the chance of injury. So what we want to do is lift, pivot and plant, and pull the foot back. But when you do this in real time, what actually happens, as I land, I push off this leg and push this leg back. So it might appear, I might have the illusion that I step out because that happens. So I do the split step, drive off this leg, which transfers some weight over. This leg comes back under, very hard to demonstrate in slow motion, and that allows me to push off. So it looks a little bit like this. What you'll often see from the pros is that they'll try and time their split step so that they can recognize where the ball is. So instead of landing on both legs together and doing what I've just demonstrated, they'll land on this leg first. So they'll land and go straight into the push off if you can time it. So we've got 2 options for the first step. We've got the split step into the lift pivot plant, and then we've got landing into the pivot and plant. Another key feature for those movements is going to be staying low. So I'm not doing this. I'm not lifting back up. I'm staying low because I want to push in that direction. So it's there, as opposed to being up there. So we've got the split step, we've got the lift, pivot and plant. That's going to push us out, and you've probably seen just from doing that, I've gone quite far. I'm fairly close to the sideline already. But then we've got that second step. So we've got first step. The next step that we're going to be able to push with is this step, which again can help me cover quite a lot of ground. So how strong, how flexible you are is going to be a key factor in all this, which is why working on single leg strength can be very important. So that way I can push off the first step and the second step, and I've covered quite a lot of ground just in 2 steps. I can easily get to a point where I'm reaching the sideline, which is something you want to work towards, because obviously as your opponent is able to hit faster and faster shots, you've got to be able to cover that ground as quickly as possible. So that's our movement to the ball. We've then got to look at the contact footwork, so exactly what we do when we hit the ball. Now, before I get to that, one thing that I really want you to remember here is your spacing. One of the other big things that I'm seeing playing against 4-0 players as I relearn to play left-handed is that most 4-0 players just get too close to the ball. So on all of their shots, they get too close to the ball, they end up being jammed. And it sounds silly because you're trying to cover ground, but often people overrun this, get too close to the ball, and that's what messes them up. So we've got a few different footwork options so that we can ideally maintain this optimal spacing so that we can hit a better quality of shot. We've got 3 that operate on a continuum and 1 that's a little bit different that we're going to be doing on higher balls. So we'll start with the first 3 first. We've got a shuffle step, a crossover step, and a running step. So the shuffle step looks like this. I've done my movement to the ball. I'm loading off this outside leg. This might be about right in terms of distance. I'm set up, and I'm just going to be shuffling over and hitting my shot that way. So my legs don't cross over. It's basically this sort of thing. And you want to practice that fluid motion of just what does that feel like as you drive off that outside leg, just to feel the hips rotating the torso. But we do that when we've got a little bit less ground to cover. So we cover the ground that we need to, and that's what the shot looks like. If we've got to cover a little bit more distance, then we're going to move to more of a crossover step. So again, I've arrived in the same position. I've maybe gone a little bit further, but I've got more ground to cover. If I try the shuffle step, I don't end up getting to the ball. That doesn't work. So what I can do instead is a crossover step, which allows me to cover a little bit more ground. So now, as I drive off this outside leg, my other leg comes across as I make contact with the ball, and then my hips, my body rotate around. So that's the crossover step. The final variation is going to be the running step. So for the running step, we're a little bit further away. And again, the exact distance really depends on your movement abilities. But from there, we've got into that same position. I've got more ground to cover. Shuffle step won't work. Crossover step won't work. I've got to try and cover that ground. So I'm really going to be driving off this outside leg and hitting a running step like that. So I'm pushing hard off my outside leg and I'm swinging and making contact as this leg goes forwards, like so. And as you can see, what happened to my racket there, it's very unlikely that you're going to hit that running step and finish around. So realistically, you're probably going to hit that running step and do a buggy whip or a higher style finish. You might even be doing that off this crossover step as well. But that's going to be important. So we've got those 3 kind of steps that work on a continuum. We've got the shuffle, we've got the crossover, and we've got the running step. Now, what's important on all of those is that you try and keep your head still on contact. So whatever the variation, head still, crossover step, head still, running step, head still, because that's going to increase consistency. The final contact footwork that we've got is going to be slightly different. This is one that you'll see a lot in the pro game, and this really allows you to neutralize that higher ball. So your opponent has hit a ball into your forehand, it's deep, it's a little bit higher, so some of these options aren't really going to work. We need to come up the back of the ball and use an outside hop. So for the outside hop, we're still loading off this outside leg, but what we'll be doing this time is, this one will definitely be a higher finish, a buggy whip style finish. We're landing again on the outside leg. So for all of the other ones, we've landed on the opposite leg first. So for all of those, I'm landing on my right leg. For the outside hop, I'm left leg to left leg. Lifting the ball back up, probably sending that one deep cross court. You can actually send it down the line as well, but the key is that it's going to be a higher, more spinny shot. That one's going to be a little bit trickier to do from wider. You just won't have the speed, or probably won't have the speed and the time to do it. So that's going to be when the ball is a little bit closer in. So there are 4 different contact footworks. You've got split step, first and second step to the ball. We've got these 4 different options for contact footworks. Make sure you're keeping your head still on contact and remembering that you might be hitting those buggy whip styles on the higher balls or on the wider balls. The final thing that we need to look at is going to be the recovery. Now, at the 4-0 level, what I'm going to recommend is that you just go back cross court. Now I'm playing at this level, it's easy to see that a lot of players just make really poor shot selections. They're on these out wide balls and they go for like 1 in 10, 1 in 100 down the line shots. If they get a winner, no, just go back cross court, because even if you don't get it right, it goes back into the middle of the court. If you go down the line, it's going to be so hard to get to that next ball. So this stuff, it makes sense more often to go back cross court, which means your recovery, you've only got to get back to here. You don't have to get very far. So for 2 of our options, for the shuffle step, we're basically in position, and for the outside hop, we're basically in position without doing much. So we've only really got to worry about 2 of those steps. But for both of those, the key is going to be driving off the outside leg into a crossover step. So if I do my crossover footwork, I end in this position. I want to try and have a wide base. So as I hit through that shot, I'm low, I'm wide. I land with this outside leg, knee caved in, which is going to give me a positive shin angle. From there, I can push back with 1 crossover step. So at full speed, it'll be more like this. It's going to be a similar thing for the running step, but we're just going to have to pivot around first. So that running step, I've landed on this leg, I've pivoted, I've still tried to land, and then I'm back in there. And then maybe a side step or an additional side step into my split step. So that would look more. The recovery would be a little bit more like that. So that's it. That's what they're the different variations that we've got for wide footwork patterns. The only exception, if we're going further than that, so obviously I've demonstrated all these from the center of the court. If I was starting cross court and I can't reach it with any of these steps, then we're basically jumping and lunging and doing some variation of a slice forehand. So that'd be another option, but we've basically got these options for the wide forehands, wide split step, lift pivot plant on the first step, push off on the second step, set up in the open stance, making sure that you're ready to hit your shot, and then we've got the different options and recovery. So these are the things that you want to practice over and over again. And you can see I'm getting a workout, I'm getting a little bit out of breath. I don't have anyone hitting to me, I don't have a ball machine. I've got a Topspin Pro, you don't necessarily need one of those. You just have to practice and get used to what you need to do to hit the shot from each of these positions. By practicing that and programming it in over and over again, it's going to make you so much faster to the ball. It's going to make a huge difference in your game. The other thing that I should add to this is that one limiting factor is going to be how well your visual system is functioning and your ability to predict where the ball's going to go. The key here is being able to pick up what's happening with the ball as quickly as possible so you can respond as quickly as possible. A lot of people don't necessarily have the ability to judge exactly where the ball is going to go efficiently, and that can be one of the areas that holds people back in terms of all this footwork. So in addition to working on this, I highly advise training your visual system. I've created a free tennis vision starter program to get you with that, there's a link down in the description. But if you would like more help with this stuff, if you've really been stuck at a 4.0 level for a while and you want to break through to being a 4.5, there's a lot of stuff that we might be able to work on to get you there. So if you would like to work with me, there's a link down in the description that's going to allow you to schedule a free chat with me so I can learn more about your game and see if there's a way that I can help you. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've found it helpful. I hope you put this stuff into practice. And it makes a big difference in your game. If you've got any questions or comments, please leave them down below and I'll get back to you as quick as I can.